Welcome back to Home with Hal. In this video, we are talking about my experience as a former Californian living in Washington State and my 5 biggest surprises. And in this video, we're going to go into depth on these surprises and talk all about what it's like living in Washington as a former Californian and some of the biggest differences that I've noticed. So if that's what you're here for, stay tuned. If you like this video and all the other videos about this area, make sure to hit the thumbs up, share this video with a friend who's interested in PNW living, and of course, subscribe. And lastly, before we jump in, I absolutely love getting calls from people who are thinking about relocating to the Pacific Northwest and Washington State. So if that's you, make sure to give me a call if you have any questions, if you want to know about my experience more in depth. You can shoot me a text, call, email, however it is you want to communicate, I'll be there for you. So let's jump right in. Number 1 is taxes. What a lot of people don't realize about Washington is the massive tax advantages there are to living in this state, especially more so than any other West Coast state. Obviously, California is synonymous with being very expensive, high in taxes, and just a very difficult barrier to overcome. If you're coming from a low cost of living area, California is a very high cost of living area. So in Washington State, we have 0 income tax, which means as long as you work within the state border of Washington, you're not paying any additional income tax outside of your federal income tax. And that is a huge difference, especially if you're coming from California, where income tax can be upwards of 10%. So by moving to Washington, you're giving yourself an instant pay raise just in tax savings alone, which is the biggest expense that we spend on more than our housing, more than anything else. Taxes is our number 1 expense. Washington is also very tax friendly for retirees, because Washington doesn't tax any income that you get from Social Security or pensions. And I'm gonna make sure to do a video detailing this more, because this is a huge topic when people are thinking about relocating when they no longer have to live in a specific area based on their career or their current job. And when they're retired, they can live anywhere that they want. So Washington becomes a very attractive retirement location. Retirement and relocation. In Washington, along the lines of taxes, we also have low property taxes. So owning a home here actually becomes more affordable, let alone when you take cost comparisons between California and Washington State. And the last big tax difference is the state doesn't tax you on inheritance for any estate that's less than $2.2 million. And you're gonna wanna check that, because obviously those things are always liable to change. And I'm not a tax expert, I'm your real estate expert and your concierge as you're relocating. So don't quote me on that, but that's the latest information that I have. So taxes was the biggest difference, because one of the things that my husband and I were looking for is a more tax advantaged place than California when we were looking to relocate outside of California. We didn't necessarily want to trade one high tax state for another high tax state. So in our list of considerations in relocating, the tax advantages of where we live was one of the biggest priorities for us. And it's also one of the reasons, as much as we love the Portland metro area, we don't have any interest in living within the state of Oregon, even though there's no sales tax there. And we can talk about that on another video as well. So number 2 is traffic. I lived for many years in LA, and I'm not talking about, I grew up an hour outside of LA, but I'm talking about in LA, walking distance to the 405 and the 10, right in like the Culver City area, if you're familiar. I also lived near the airport in Westchester when I went to college, so I'm very familiar with LA traffic, especially if you're trying to go into the valley, or God forbid you want to get to San Diego. That can easily be a 3-hour trip from LA to San Diego. So traffic in LA and Southern California in general can be absolutely atrocious and can really suck the life out of you. So when my husband and I got up here, we looked around and people were like, oh, there's traffic at this time. And we were like, what traffic? If you can hear him in the background, he's like, that ain't no traffic. The difference is stark. The one time that I've actually been stuck in traffic in our 3 years of living here was when they were doing construction on the I-5 bridge between Portland and Vancouver, which doesn't happen very often. And even then, it still wasn't as bad as LA and SoCal traffic. And I'm pretty sure traffic in the Bay Area can be pretty bad too. So traffic is a huge difference. And also the way people drive, there's a state route, which is a pretty common east to west thoroughfare, especially if you live in southeast of Vancouver, or in the southern, especially if you live in the more southern part of Vancouver, and that's, what's it called? Highway 14. Highway 14. As a Californian, I'm used to putting the in front of every freeway and highway, so the 14, the 5. So it's a little bit different vernacular living here. The speed limit on Highway 14 is about 60 miles an hour, and people actually drive it. If you have ever driven in California, you know that most of the speed limits are 65, and depending on the freeway you're on and the time of day, the flow of traffic can easily be going 80 miles an hour. Super common. There's been times where I've driven and I'm keeping up with traffic and I wasn't paying attention, and next thing I know, I'm going 85, pushing 90, and I'm like, whoa, wait a second. And I'm keeping up with the flow of traffic at 85, 87, but I don't want to be going that fast, so I quickly need to move over right and slow my speed down while everyone else can fly past me. But that's just how it is in Southern California. It's very easy to speed. It's very common. The speed limit might as well be 80 because that's what most people drive when there's not traffic. So you're either in traffic or you can go 80 miles an hour. Whereas here on Highway 14, the speed limit is 60, and if you're going 80, it's weird. Like, people pass my husband and I at maybe like 65, 70, and I'm like, whoa, those people are flying. So it's just a totally different pace of life, approach to driving. If you've ever seen the Portlandia episode where they get to the stop sign and there's a competition between them, like, no, you go, no, you go. We have actually had that exact experience in Portland. I say exact, but I'm stretching the truth a little bit. So it's just a totally different driving culture up here. Unless, if you're going from Vancouver to Seattle, you're gonna hit some wide open freeway, but within the Southwest Washington in general, there's not a ton of speeding. And traffic is just way lighter than what you're used to if you're coming from California. We've covered taxes and traffic. Number 3 is the weather. And I would say we were totally duped. Now I might get into trouble with my friends for saying this, for outing what the weather is actually like in the Pacific Northwest. But my husband and I had the impression when we moved here that it was going to rain practically every day. Even in the summer, like, we thought it was just constant rain. Like, we thought it was gonna be really short summers and rainy every day. And that really hasn't been the case. And so we looked into the numbers and we're like, okay, why did we think that there was gonna be so much rain?
Things are loud. You can tell the freaking power putting out to be that far away.
So right over my shoulder is Portland International Airport, and I don't know if you can hear the fighter jet. You do hear those in Vancouver, a couple times a month. So you can definitely hear the Air Force and their fighter jets, flying out of PDX. Just something to know. So I'm waiting for that to pass. I think we're clear. We looked into the numbers to find out why did we think that it was this constantly gloomy, rainy place. And so here's what I found out about Vancouver, Washington specifically, which is where I live, and just love this whole PNW area, Southwest Washington, and then specifically the city of Vancouver. I love living here. So here's what we found. There are 164 days a year with some level of precipitation. So 164 days where the rain is participating in some level of precipitation. And annually, we get about 42 inches of rain. So when you think about, that's a lot of rainy days, but not a lot of rainy inches. The average in the US is 38 inches. So we're not getting that much more actual rainfall. It's just we have more cloudy days, it's overcast, which I love. Growing up in Southern California when it's like almost always sunny is really kind of boring. And so I personally love, because I didn't grow up with a lot of them, I love overcast, rainy days. So one of the things my husband and I realized after living here now for 3 years is it's not really rain. We call it the mist, where you go outside and it just feels like there's a mister on you. It's not enough rain to stop you from doing any activities. It's typically not super heavy rain where it's pouring down, which is why there's this stereotype about, people in the Pacific Northwest and specifically in Portland don't use umbrellas, and they don't, and we don't, because an umbrella would be such a hassle to have to take it out. It'll get wet because there's mist, so then you gotta shake it out, you gotta put it away. It's easier just to throw your hood on or wear a hat. Of course you gotta have your obligatory P&W plaid, and it just makes it so much easier. So it's typically not a heavy rain, it's misty. So if you like overcast weather, but don't necessarily like heavy rain or heavy snow, we're only getting about 3 inches of snow a year. Actually, as I speak, we are on snow watch because we are supposed to get our first snow for this season. It's supposed to happen today, but they keep pushing it off. So we're only getting about 3 inches a year, and I don't think we got that at all last year. Not even close. I don't even know if we got a whole inch last year. So if you're considering moving from a state that's very snowy and you want something that has more temperament, climate, easier weather to live with, this will definitely be for you. It snows enough that it's cute, but not enough that it's an inconvenience. Let's compare Atlanta, which gets 109 rainy days a year and 52 inches of rain. So Hotlanta is getting 109 rainy days compared to us in Vancouver at 164. They're getting 52 inches per year. We're getting 42 inches per year. So they're getting more rain in a shorter amount of time. So, no right or wrong to what your preference is, obviously. But if you like overcast like this, not heavy rain all the time, you'd probably be better off in Vancouver than you would in Atlanta, just to give you an example. So if you're into cool, sexy, laid back, chill, grab a coffee, grab a tea, watch a movie, bundle up in front of the fireplace, if that's your vibe, like kind of Netflix and chill vibes, you're gonna like the Pacific Northwest and Washington State, and maybe you'll be a neighbor in Southwest Washington here. That brings us to number 4, which is activities or things to do. This may or may not go without saying, but if you like outdoor activities, hiking, biking, running, walking, water sports, so we're talking like sea-dooing, boating, windsurfing, kayaking, mountain biking. If you like outdoor activities, there is no better place to live than the Pacific Northwest, where you can be at the beach in about an hour, 20 minutes or so. You can be at the mountains in about the same time, and I'm talking serious 300 inches of snow up on Mount Hood per year. Snowboarding, skiing, snowshoeing. I mean, it is a adventurer's playground up here, and it's great living in Vancouver where you can hop over the bridge into Portland and jet up to Mount Hood, or you can take the scenic route like my husband and I like to do. We take State Route 14, take this long, windy drive up the Columbia River Gorge, and it is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And we'll just go have lunch in Hood River, and then we come back. See the snow. It depends on if it's in the summer. There's the Fruit Loop, which is a loop of different farmers markets and produce stands and wineries that you can visit out there. So that's great in the summer. In the winter, it's snowy. You can go play in the snow. You can ski, snowboard up at Ski Bowl or Mount Hood Meadows. So the amount of activities you can do from an outdoor standpoint are immense. And then of course we have the city life. Right now, from where I'm sitting in this very moment, it is 21 minutes to get from Vancouver to downtown Portland and 15 miles. Coming from Southern California, especially if you're in LA, going 15 miles can take you up to an hour and a half. My husband and I went from Culver City to UCLA, which they basically border each other, one time to go get Diddy Reese. This is a little side story. To go get Diddy Reese at like 11 o'clock at night. It's like a famous cookie. They make like cookie and ice cream sandwiches. Really popular. Always a line out the door. Oh, they're so great. And I want to say it was like 4 miles. And we hopped on the freeway because at the time that we got on the freeway, Google told us that it was faster. And it literally took us an hour to get there. And there's no refuge because there was traffic going the other way too at 11 p.m. at night. So there was nothing we could do. We were like, we're already committed to going. And it just took forever. So to be able to live in the suburbs and be able to get downtown in 20 minutes is a huge, huge perk to Southwest Washington. And I'll say it again, Vancouver. So you definitely have all of the city life benefits within 20 minutes. So, you know, restaurants and festivals and, you know, post-COVID life, all the things, movies in the park and concerts outdoors and all the things that come with living in the big city or living in a major metropolitan area like Portland. But because we're in the suburbs, we get to have our little suburban life and get the benefits of all the city activities. So you get city activities and outdoor activities. And we absolutely love that about living in the Pacific Northwest. All right, number 5 is cost of living. And let me just say, like, wow. Wow, wow, wow. The cost of living, while Southwest Washington isn't the cheapest cost of living area in the entire country. I mean, you can find low cost of living areas in rundown parts of mostly middle America because, you know, the coasts are more expensive to live in. We've been really happy coming from California to Washington and the real estate prices here. The first place that we lived when we moved here, we rented a house in a gated community that was on the river with a private beach. It was a 2,400 square foot house, and the value of that house was about $600,000. The same house, if you took that same house and plopped it in Southern California, you're easily looking at double the price. Housing prices are more affordable here in Washington than in California. Even down to the car registration, not something that you can avoid, is much cheaper here. I had a 10-year-old Nissan Altima that in California that was, I think, $250 a year to register. So you're talking about less than half the cost to register. I sold that car before I moved, but if it was here, it would be less than half the cost to register that. So just little things like that add up, that are annual expenses, or little ways that you get nickeled and dimed. Coming from California is totally different here. It's such a breath of fresh air. Here's something pretty cool. Utilities are also cheaper. Our electric bill was significantly reduced when we moved here. Our average electric bill averaged out in a 2,400 square foot house, averaged out throughout the year was about $50. And both my husband and I work from home, so we're home all day. We're using the electricity. Our lowest bill was typically like $35. Our highest bill was about $60. So it's not like California where it's so darn hot in the summer that you constantly have to have the AC on. We barely run our AC. And in California, in the summer, your bill skyrockets to several $100s easily because it's so hot, you have to constantly run the AC. You just can't turn it off because it's so inefficient to recool the house when you get home. So, and part of the reason that our energy bill, our electric bill is so cheap because we get hydro or water power from the Bonneville Dam. You can look at the Clark Public Utilities and you can see what percentage, which is very efficient because the water's running anyway. It's running through there and we're generating power from it. So it makes it a lot, number one, cheaper and more environmentally friendly to use hydropower, hence why our electric bill is so affordable. So to give you a little bit of numbers behind this, the cost of living index, so 100 would be the average for the entire United States. And if the cost of living index is below 100, it means that it's cheaper than average. And if it's above 100, it means it's more expensive. For California, the cost of living index is 149.9 versus Vancouver, which is 114.3. So significantly closer to the average cost of living throughout the United States. And like I said, living in Washington or in Vancouver is not the lowest cost of living area you can choose, but for myself and my husband, and obviously the millions of people that live in this metro area, the combination between lower cost of living than some places, between the outdoor activities, the mild climate, it creates such a great combination of pros that make it just a great place to live. I can't believe I forgot to bring this up in the climate part. Talking about the summers. These summers here are so gorgeous. Just absolutely amazing. 80-degree weather. It's never too hot. It's sunny. Fighter jets are out again. It's sunny. It's warm. My husband and I also have a Jeep Wrangler that we typically take the top off in the summer. It sits in the garage, so we're not super worried about leaves falling in it and it getting dirty outside or anything like that. So every year that we've been here, we typically take the top off in June, and my husband has a little competition with himself to see how long he can go without having to put the top back on. Because obviously if it was raining all the time and we wanted to drive it, we would need to put the top back on. And every year we've been able to go at least 4 months. So typically like the first week in June, we can take it off, it stops raining. So we'll go June, July, August into September without having to put the top on, where we can drive it a few times a week. We work from home, so we don't leave the house every day. We can drive it a few times a week without having to worry about getting rained on. This last year, we went all the way to November, keeping the top off. So that gives you an idea of the summers, how warm and sunny it is. And because we're so far north, the sun doesn't set, or I should say it doesn't get dark until about 9:45, 10 o'clock at the height of summer. So the length of the day gives you so much time to do activities and be outside and enjoy yourself and meet up with friends. And actually the hottest time of the day in the summer is about 5 p.m. So I have a friend who works at a bank, so she pretty much gets off religiously at 5 o'clock. And she normally goes in the summer and grabs a glass of wine, puts on her bathing suit, and suntans at 5 o'clock because it's the warmest time of the day. And she can enjoy herself well into the night once she's off work. All right, and wrapping up this video, I have one bonus surprise that really makes your life richer, and that is the people that are around you. The people here in the Pacific Northwest are some of the friendliest, most down-to-earth people that would just do you a favor just because they know you. They're just good people here. The time that we've been here, my husband and I have developed deeper connections and deeper friendships than we've ever had in any of the other places that we've lived. And it really comes down to just the quality of people that are here. We love being around PNW folks. And if you come here, if you want to relocate here, then we'll get to be those neighbors and friends for you as well. If you like this video and you want to know more, I'm going to do a deeper dive on each of the 5 surprises that I told you about. So cost of living, taxes, traffic, weather, and things to do in the Pacific Northwest. So make sure to like, share, subscribe so you can stay tuned as I release those videos. And if you know anyone who is thinking about relocating to the Pacific Northwest, be sure to have them give me a call. If that's you, shoot me a call, text, email. You can hit me up on social media. I am available to speak to you, to answer any questions in a really fun and absolutely no pressure way. You might not even decide to relocate here. You might be living in California and trying to decide between Washington and Texas. You might be living in Georgia thinking about Kentucky or Washington or Idaho. So there's absolutely no pressure at all for me. I just want to make sure you get the information, because if you come here, I want you to be happy. I mean, why wouldn't I? And if you know of anyone who's looking to get into real estate, to become a real estate agent, please put us in touch. I would love to chat with them. I love working in real estate and would love to help anyone who is starting their career. So with that being said, I will catch you on the next video. Here's to finding your home with Hal. Ciao.